Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm writing to What is Aham? Swami Anubhavananda. Non-stop continuous commitment to the cause is Nididya Sana. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I probably pronounced it wrong, but I tried my best. Let's go and give this video a shot.
The substratum, the pure self, alone become the waker, the waking world and waking experiences, or the pure substratum, the absolute reality, has supported all these illusions but doesn't become any one of them. This is the most important principle according to Yoga Vasishtha. Understand this.
Well, it's not that it doesn't become. Here, let me know if I'm wrong. It's not that It doesn't become. It is them. It's just that these are not necessarily illusions per se, because everything we see is just consciousness. Everything that we experience is consciousness. So it is it, I believe, and the things we experience, things we touch, we see, all of it here is consciousness. So, um, yes, it's what we think it is an illusion. We think I believe this is not is an illusion. This is a pen. It's not really a pen. It's consciousness. I'm experiencing consciousness, and that's what I get. That's how I understand it. So it's really weird if you say that this isn't real. I don't know. Let me know how you would word it. Like, would you say this is fake? This is false, or would you say this is real, but it's just a misunderstanding? Meaning that what you're touching is real, but you think it's a paint bottle, but in reality it's consciousness. Or would you say this paint bottle is false? It's not even there. It's not real at all. It's not even consciousness. It's an illusion, not meaning not real. So I'm in more of the boat that this is real, but this is consciousness. I'm experiencing the consciousness through the touch, the eyes, oh, the smell. But you get what I'm saying through the five senses. Even the things that I can't experience through the five senses is still consciousness itself. So so you have the two boats that it's either completely all faked and not there, or it is real and it is consciousness. So this is real in consciousness. This paint bottle is not real. It's not there, and I would assume it's not consciousness because it is not consciousness. Or am I mixing it up a little bit still here too?
Both way we have to understand. First understanding should be Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Then you are liberated from the ahankar, aham. And then you start the second stage, that the Brahma, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. So when Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma state comes, then we are liberated from the world of relativity and only pure love for everything happens. See, like in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says in 18th chapter, Brahmabhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kangshati. Why he is cheerful, he doesn't regret on the past or worry about the future, because he knows it's an illusion. Then Samas Sarveshu Bhuteshu. So the substratum is common to all. The vision is common for all the colors and forms. Samas Sarveshu Bhuteshu. Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. Then there is no hatred for anything or anybody, because Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything I am. Na tato vijugupsate. See, friends, Sukaroham krute tyagaha na kleshotra managapi mithya rupo hyaham bhavaha. Do not justify yourself being miserable. The day you justify you are miserable, your aham bhava is very strong. Therefore, we told you the simple equation. The more the miserable we are, stronger is our ego. Less miserable we are, happy we are.
The more miserable we are, the stronger our ego. The less miserable, the less strong the ego. Okay. So we can the way I can interpret that so far is it's not necessarily the less suffering you have that means that you're more happy. It doesn't have to less suffering doesn't mean more happiness. It could just mean more content, I believe. But he doesn't give, at least not yet, unless I pause too soon. But he doesn't give. He doesn't say that the less sad you are, the more happy you are. So I'm assuming because obviously sadness and happiness are temporary, contentment can be forever. You can never be happy forever, and you can never be sad forever. But I believe you can be content forever, right? I mean, technically, everything is, in a sense, temporarily. But But I suppose because of enlightenment, you can be content forever, because then you do not seek the pleasures of life, and you do not suffer the suffering of life. You do not feel the effects of pleasure or suffering of life. So contentment is neither happiness nor sadness, I believe. It's a happy middle ground. It's a middle ground. So let me rewind that part. Yeah, so why does misery strengthens the ego? I mean, I would assume happiness would too. So again, that's the reason why I thought it's whenever he said that it's not necessarily that when you're when you're suffering that you're becoming more happy, because I believe probably suffering and happiness both contribute to strengthening the ego. Because again, was it I was thinking Swami Sarvapriyananda. He talks about the three things that makes us happy in terms of the scientific three, versus the fourth one, which is Atman or Turiya or Brahman or enlightenment. So buying things will make you happy, but that's very temporary. That's a very short-term temporary happiness. Having a job, a bit of a long-term happiness, but it doesn't keep you happy forever. Serving others makes you happy a lot longer, but again, still temporary. So all these things, you buying stuff boosts your ego happiness for a while. So that's the reason why I thought that where miserable makes you stronger, because you want to make the ego happy. When the ego's happy, you want to keep it happy, so you strengthen the ego's happiness. But that's the reason why I thought maybe contentment's what he's looking at here.
We have to do it. Nobody can do it for us. सुकरो हंकृते त्यागो न क्लेशोत्र मनागपि मिथ्या रूपो ही अहम भावः. This aham bhava is not real. You are real. This aham bhava comes under n number of conditions. Mithya rupo aham bhava liyate tad bhavanat. Liyate tattva bhavanat. Then find out what is this aham. Can I be the body? Can I be the mind? Can I be this thing? No. So I am upadhi rahita satta. See? Attributeless, formless, conscious being. Tattva bhavanat. All the spiritual practice is this. How I have become a husband, how I have become a father, how I have become a mother, how I have become a grandfather, how I have become a father-in-law, how I suffer because of the daughter-in-law. Find out who is suffering, who is going through experiences. This is what is real spiritual contemplation. See? So first of all, reject what we are not. And see how much burden we are carrying on ourselves. I am husband, I am father, I am father-in-law, I am daughter-in-law, I am mother-in-law. So many of them. And when you carry the burden of these all fictitious, non-existing entities, what can be helped? You cannot help a husband if he is miserable because of the wife, because both of them do not exist. See? मिथ्या रूपो ही अहम भावः लीयते तत्व भावनात्. Therefore, the real spiritual practice, like in the um, Tejo Bindu Upanishad, in the third chapter, if I remember correctly, there it is said, Aham Brahmasmi Mantroyam is Aham Brahmasmi Mantra. Now, this Aham Brahmasmi Mantra, we have told you in simple words, Mauj mein raho, or be happy. Aham Brahmasmi Mantra in English is translated as be happy, not become happy. Mauj mein raho, not mauj karo. See how simple the spiritual life is. But we have made it so complicated. Mithya rupo yoham bhavaha liyate tattva bhavana. There is nothing like this ahankara, it is nowhere. And it becomes stronger when we are keep on accumulating possessions and relations on our body, on our mind, not on body. So all these possessions and relations put together, that mule who is carrying it is called as the ahankar or ahambhava, highness.
Hmm. Carrying all is essentially he's talking about the identities, father, mother, son, child, etc. And the identities don't exist. Yes. um, but it exists for a reason. Of course, it is still within Maya, though. Absolutely. I guess for me, it's just it goes. I hate having the I don't know what to say. Simplify it like this. I guess I don't know if that's the right word, but I mean, the answer to everything in life is essentially enlightenment. It's like, are you struggling? Enlightenment, and that'll solve your problem. It's. I don't like how to say that is the right answer, but you can't just say that and expect people, oh, okay, I'll just be enlightened then. It's like it's not easy to be enlightened, obviously, because otherwise everyone would be enlightened. I mean, and if you look at it in terms of Advaita Vedanta, we are technically all already enlightened. We are just ignorant of the fact. So at that point, it's like, well, if you're already enlightened, then what's the point of working? Why do we still suffer? Why do we not recognize our enlightenment? Again, because we're ignorant of it. So that's the reason why I don't like to say just be enlightened. I mean, you're already enlightened, just recognize it. But I guess this is a bit of a simpler term than just enlightenment. Is again, I guess I realized this whenever I heard life is suffering back in college. I literally guess I realized at that moment whenever my world religion teacher, which I believe she was Indian, she had the dot in her forehead. Plus, I was curious about the world religions, and whenever she went over Buddhism, and she said that life is suffering, I was like, at that moment, I was like, man, I didn't believe her at first. Of course, you shouldn't just believe anyone, but I was like, let me test that theory. Giving birth, people are happy when they give birth, but they suffer when they're giving birth. It's like, okay, okay, gotcha. And then, when the kid is, a little bit older, they kind of disobey you. They're can be rotten sometimes. So it's like, okay, there's a little bit of suffering there too. It's like, okay, let me think of something else different. Ice cream. I don't know if I thought about this or not, but I'll say now. You say ice cream. It's like, well, yeah, you suffer by becoming fat if you eat too much of that. It's unhealthy. It's like, okay, okay, okay. Eating healthy. It's like, well, what about that one? It's like, well, not all healthy foods are great. And then if you only eat the great healthy foods, you'll become what they call, I guess, was it? I can't remember. Fatigue, food fatigue, taste fatigue. Essentially, if you keep eating the same thing over and over again, you will get food fatigue or fatigue of that flavor. So you kind of have to mix it up. Now, not everyone, of course, but I think it's a majority of people. So, anyways, so I realized that okay, maybe she is right. That life is just suffering. So I decided not to suffer life then. So I can still do life things like be a father, a mother, a child, a businessman, or a space person, or whatever. but just not suffer from it. So, and that's my simple version. As opposed to just saying be enlightened, I would say just don't suffer from it. It's still, it's still like very like arrogant sounding. It's like, yeah, just don't suffer from it. It's like, what do you mean don't suffer from it? It's this is the reason why you kind of have to have, for me at least, you have to have specifics. But like, I guess for me, what made it very simple was just acknowledging the fact that life is suffering, and choosing not to suffer from life. And the way I did it's by understanding what causes the suffering. So, trying to think of an example. Um, for some odd reason, I can't think of any good example. But I guess an example that may cause people suffering is if their drinks is it made correctly, if it's not the right kind of drink. So that has happened to me before, and I drank. It's like, man, this is not what I ordered, but it tastes pretty good, so I guess I'll just keep it. And I just went on. I was like, well, this is a different flavor. It's fine, it's I got the same size, it's the same whatever. So it's not like I got less of what I ordered. It's just different flavor. I was like, well, I'll take it. I'll keep it. So I didn't suffer from getting the wrong drink. I accepted it. I accepted it, and it's I guess it's kind of forcing me to try out new things. But how do I understand that? It's like, well, it's an honest mistake. Maybe, they got the order mixed up or whatever. We're all human here, so we make mistakes. So I didn't hold it up against them at all. So I guess that's a decent example. But you look at the things that you suffered in life, and you try to understand why you suffered it. Like, okay, so that maybe that's the person that caused you suffering, right? You think it's like, okay, is did they make an honest mistake? Did they intend? Did they have ill intent on what they did to you? If they didn't, then don't suffer it because it wasn't intentional. It wasn't really meant to cause you any harm. It's just an honest mistake. So you shouldn't be mad at the person. You can always go back and just try to get it corrected. I could have went back and got my drink corrected and probably got a free drink, but it's like, nah, that's okay. This is a pretty good drink, so I just kept on going. Um, but again, I guess my kind of thing is understanding, and if you can understand a lot of things in life, you probably would not suffer as much. I'm not going to sit here and say that you're going to understand everything, but the more that you can, I think the easier life will be, the less suffering you'll have. So again, like I said, being a father, all these false titles, a lot of the falseness, I don't think there's necessarily anything inherently wrong with it. Excuse me. It's just that whether you suffer it or not is where it becomes wrong. So, kind of like, I guess maybe I did think about this a little bit earlier about like how was it Swami Vivekananda, how he talked about how he still felt emotions and still cried. I thought that was kind of a little bit strange, but I get it because the body will never escape Maya because it is part of Maya, the illusion. And I always thought that like if you're enlightened, you wouldn't be suffering so much. But then I thought maybe the method that I like is to reduce suffering, meaning that the suffering in Maya itself, even though the body can escape it, the body will still feel it, and you still acknowledge it. Even though you are already enlightened, you still the mind, the ego will still feel it, and the thing that teaches you is the fact that if the ego is so strong, the your true self and the ego are indistinguishable. You don't know which one's the true you, except for the ego itself, because that's how we've been growing up in life. So even Swami Vivekananda still suffers. He still cried in the world, even though he's enlightened. I guess for me, it's like, well, I don't want to suffer in this world. Like I said, whenever I heard about life as suffering, I said I don't. I choose not to suffer in life. That doesn't mean that you won't ever suffer at all. Doesn't mean you become heartless. But I don't suffer the small stuff. So I assume Swami Vivekananda cries and weeps because of very good reasons, but he doesn't cries and weeps over mediocre things, like whether, I'm assuming even eating himself probably wouldn't cry over that, but if he sees other people suffering and not eating, he would feel something for that, but not for himself, which I would probably would. um, but again, most people would. You know, if you are suffering because you've lost your job or whatever, you're unable to eat, you would probably cry because you're not able to eat or whatever. But I hope you understand what I'm coming from. That we reduce stupid suffering, I guess you could say. I don't know what the right word would be. Like stuff that are not worth suffering over. But um, being emotional to people's suffrage and towards people who have done good things, I think is perfectly fine. Like I don't know. I've been watching a lot of people who does a reaction to the American Civil War by oversimplified, and I always tear up whenever it gets to the end of it. I'm not gonna spoil it. So if you want to go watch it, I just always tear up towards the end there. And yeah, I guess I'll just give it that way. I suffer a little bit, but it's not. It's suffering a little bit, but it's for a good reason. So it's not a bad suffering, I guess. Anyways, that's my reaction to what is Aham. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down, down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.